Okay, we are back in order. The recess was to ask whether or not we were going to be able to read confidential documents sent down from the chief's office in this veto message. The answer is no, we're not going to read confidential documents that the chief has deemed confidential for his veto message. To the Honorable Alice Goodfox, Speaker of the Osage Nation Congress, and members of the 8th Osage Nation Congress, pursuant to the provisions of Section 11, Article 7, and Section 14 of Article 6 of the Osage Nation Constitution, I hereby transmit my objections to ONCA 22-113 entitled, An Act to Amend the Osage Nation Gaming Reform Act of 2007 to require all net revenues to be dispersed to the Osage Nation when an Osage Nation gaming enterprise annual plan of operations has not been approved by the Osage Nation Congress, and to establish an alternate effective date. I am vetoing ONCA 22-113 because it puts the credit of the Osage Nation and its entities at risk, most likely causes an event of default under the Osage Casino's loan agreement with its lenders, and would obligate the nation to assume an immediately due, although previously non-existent, liability. Further, I am vetoing the bill because it is an unlawful violation of the will of our Osage people as expressed in our Constitution's separation of powers provisions. All officials and employees of the Osage Nation have a fiduciary duty to the nation. Included in that duty is to preserve and protect the credit and other assets of the nation. Likewise, the officers and employees of the Osage Nation have a fiduciary duty to avoid unnecessarily and unlawfully incurring liabilities on behalf of the nation. By enacting the bill, those members of Congress voting for the bill violated those duties. I will not assist that violation by signing this bill. The Osage casinos currently have a loan agreement with a large Tulsa-based bank and other lenders. Congress approved that loan agreement before it was signed. As a result of that loan, and because of the great financial success of the casinos, the nation was dropped from an earlier loan and is not a borrower under a current loan. The current loan, among other things, is being used to build the new casinos in Pawhuska and Bartlesville. As a condition of the current loan, Congress approved and the nation signed a non-impairment agreement. In that non-impairment agreement, Congress approved and authorized the nation's promise to not alter the nation's laws to negatively impact the lender's position. If the nation breaks its promise, the loan is in default. The loan can immediately be called. The nation itself, along with the Osage casinos, becomes immediately obligated to pay the full outstanding amount, and the nation and the casinos will be unable to access loan funds for future plans and operation. Of greater impact of a breach by the nation of its non-impairment agreement will be the long-term harm to the nation and the casino's ability to borrow money, much less at the favorable rate currently in place. A default will follow the nation as it attempts to build a casino in Missouri, as it attempts to complete new casinos in Pawhuska and Bartlesville, as it attempts to build new healthcare facilities, as it seeks to build world-class education facilities for the Osage people. In other words, people and companies will be reluctant to do business with the nation, and our cost of doing business will be increased. The bill most likely, 1, breaches the non-impairment agreement, 2, breaches the casino's loan agreement, 3, results in loan default, 4, makes the nation liable on the casino's loan, and 5, allows the lenders to call the loan for full repayment. The long-term impact of the bill will reputably harm, if not completely destroy, the nation and the casino's ability to borrow from banks at reasonable rates to meet our nation and its enterprises' future needs and goals. See Exhibit C, Letter from the Bank of Oklahoma addressing the bill. Of particular concern are the apparent facts that the bill was passed on the same day as its introduction into Congress without a committee public hearing, without a discussion with the casino's lenders, without the advice of a financial advisor without input from the casino's senior management administering the loan and without an opinion from a qualified transactional counsel of all which fiduciary duties require. I will not be party to breaking the promises of the nation and its casinos to lenders, will not subject the nation to unnecessary new liability, will not assist in causing an acceleration of the repayment of the Osage Casino's indebtedness, and will not jeopardize the future creditworthiness of the nation or the Osage Casinos. Accordingly, I am vetoing the bill to protect the nation and the Osage Casino and their creditworthiness, which has taken years of responsible behavior by the nation and the casino lenders to build up and maintain. Even if the bill would not cause an adverse credit impact on the nation and its casinos, I still would veto the bill as unconstitutional and therefore illegal act of the Congress. In Standing Bear versus Whitehorn, Supreme Court Opinion 21501, Osage Nation Supreme Court, May 8, 2016, the Osage Nation Supreme Court struck down as unconstitutional language by Congress involving the casino's annual plan. The Supreme Court made clear that the Osage Nation Gaming Board is a constitutionally included part of the executive branch of our nation's government. As such, the Supreme Court explained that Congress was not to become involved in the operational aspects of the Osage casinos. In Standing Bear versus Pratt, Supreme Court Opinion 2016-01, page 13, the Osage Nation Supreme Court directly reminded Congress of the separation of powers by expressly stating that the centralized tribal council model created under the Act of June 28, 1906, 34 Stat 539, in which all governmental power was vested in one body, was clearly rejected by the people in 2006 in favor of the three-branch government now embodied in the Osage Nation Constitution. The Osage Nation Gaming Enterprise Board is an enterprise board responsible for overseeing operations. Whitehorn at page 19. The Osage people made a conscious decision to establish a separation of function between the nation's political bodies and its business enterprises. Whitehorn at page 23. The Constitution does not assign Congress any role in the ongoing day-to-day affairs of the enterprise. Whitehorn at page 2548. In Whitehorn, the Supreme Court made clear the Constitution's necessity of the casino be operated under an annual plan. As the Supreme Court stated in Whitehorn at page 31, as a member of the Constitutional Law, board members are appointed officials of the nation. As such, they have a constitutional duty to oversee operations of the enterprise, which must operate under an annual plan of operation as approved or disapproved by the Congress. The current law respects that directive from our High Court by providing that the last approved annual plan continues if a proposed annual plan is not adopted by the Congress. The bill changes that law, and in doing so, violates the Supreme Court teaching by prohibiting such operation of the casinos by the board pursuant to an annual plan if Congress chooses to reject a proposed annual plan submitted by the board. The bill allows Congress to exercise direct control of the operations of the casinos by congressional rejection of a proposed annual plan. As a result, there will be no effective annual plan after its rejection, which need not be in good faith. Congress, under the bill, then proceeds to control operations of the casino by sweeping cash at year end and then deciding what, if any, cash to provide to the Enterprise Board in annual appropriations. In other words, the bill authorizes Congress to dispense with the constitutionality required annual plan and assume direct control of the casinos by controlling their funding. The bill I am vetoing contradicts the clear directive of the Supreme Court by violating our Constitution's separation of powers. The Constitution does not authorize the operations of the casino to be dependent on the political act of legislative appropriation. Bills that do so violate the separation of powers required by our Constitution, including the separation of functions between the political and business arms of the nation. The bill is clearly unconstitutional, and accordingly, as I did in the case of the bills the Supreme Court found unconstitutional in Whitehorn, I veto ONCA 22-113. Sincerely, Jeffrey Standing Bear, Principal Chief. Next is the legislative end of session report. Seven bills were filed to appropriate non-tribal funds this session, all passed, and $74,843,658 in non-tribal funds were appropriated. Of that, more than $54.5 million was for broadband expansion in the Osage Nation. 6 bills were filed to appropriate ARPA funds. Congress passed all 6, appropriating $8,605,701 for several projects, including chapel expansions in Hominy and Greyhorse, construction of a new Pawhuska-Wheeler, flooring for Butcher House, and supplemental funding for construction of the PRT facilities and senior housing in Hominy. $1,456,118 in ARPA funds remain available for appropriation. 15 tribal appropriation bills were filed. Combined would have appropriated $70,559,215. Of those, 12 passed, appropriating $68,483,080, with $11.4 million going to the Health Benefit Fund, $8.5 million to Higher Ed Scholarship Fund, and $1 million to burial assistance. Nearly $1.7 million was appropriated to direct assistance for a number of other programs, including financial assistance, housing, education, and Indian child welfare. Congress also added $1 million to the permanent fund this session. We are closing the session with $1,722,965 in unappropriated FY22 funds, $4,537,521 in FY23 funds remaining available for appropriation, and the treasurer reporting that $6,272,668 is available for appropriation from the retained revenue fund. We had 17 appointees, 16 were confirmed. We changed laws for corporate donations and anonymous donations. And we approved bylaws for CDFI. And that's it.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion on the floor and a
Second.
and a second to adjourn this session. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. We're adjourned. Thank you.